An annual huge event of the Galactic Federation, called the Infinite Tournament, introduced the strongest fighters and the most advanced technologies in the universe. The said tournament just did not test one's fighting skill, but also strategy, endurance, and how technology works in battle. Members of the Federation traveled much more than millions of light years away from across the galaxy to be able to watch the champions competing in this special event. The holographic displays, huge seating for the various species of onlookers, and galactic music filled the air in this arena. The top favorites this year were Zartok, a four-armed giant champion hailing from the Catalar, Urka, a heavily armored tech warrior from the Votrunian race, and Zintara, a fast sharpshooter from the Plashlian species. All had fought against opponents throughout the galaxy, subduing planets. But this year was different. The head advisor of the Federation, Frither, as was customary, sent out an open invitation across every galaxy. In putting together the list of fighters to fill the spots for the tournament, one name jumped off the page: Alira. Alira hailed from Earth A Deathworld. To be exact, the other galactic species usually regarded the people coming from Deathworlds as backward, thin-blooded, and capable of surviving only with whatever harsh conditions lay at their feet. They thought the Deathworlders were backwards in technology, and that muscular power granted them nothing when weighed against the best warriors in the galaxy. But Alira was more than just a human. This is when the arena fell silent as Alira said she was going to enter the tournament without technological assistance. Her opponents laughed, while the audience was shocked and confused. Zartok's forearms were draped in heavy armors, each muscle capable of lifting hundreds of pounds. The armor and armament of Iarka had been forged by the best war engineers of the galaxy with energy shields able to absorb laser attacks. The light, flexible body of Zintara allowed her to manage an advanced plasma weapon with which she could hit any target. But Alira, she would enter the arena only with her body. On the first day, the audience was very inquisitive about Alira. What is a human doing here? Was the question in everybody's mind. Of course, it was known that Deathworld creatures were tough. It was just that nobody believed that they could stand up to advanced technology fighters. In the galaxy's history, no Deathworlder had won this kind of major tournament. But Alira didn't show any trace of fear. She entered calmly into the arena and to her place. Everybody wondered how she was going to behave because she had neither weapons nor technological support. Her opponents took it as an insult. Alira would count only on her physical strength and gain from her advantage. Her first match was against Zartok. Zartok lumbered along, his heavy footfalls shaking the ground with every step he took. His huge forearms and thick armor rattled along. The audience was expecting him to squash Alira with one blow. But that never happened. When Zartok attacked Alira, she dodged him in an incredible burst of speed. His fists hit deep into the ground, by which time Alira had appeared behind him. The giant Catalar was too slow for the likes of Alira. She outlined weak points in Zartok's defenses and gave him no chance for counterattack. First to strike was Alira. She kicked Zartok into the chest. A little hit for such a giant as Zartok, but he lost balance and fell to the ground. The audience was terribly shocked. How could this small human bring down such huge creature? The first round was with Alira. The gigantic size of Zartok made him slow and sluggish. She had an easy fighting strategy. Just observe the weak points of her opponent and strike without warning. The second match was with Urka. Urka depended upon her heavy armor and energy shields. Alira took a different approach this time. She aimed to drain Urka's energy. No matter how strong the shields were, they would eventually overheat. Alira didn't attack directly, but with her smart moves, she made Urka keep her shields up. Minutes passed and Urka's movements became slow. Her shields began failing. People started to doubt their belief in technology. Finally, Alira found a weak point in Urka's armor and beat her with just one move. Once again, nobody expected such an outcome. The last one was against Zintara. She was unbeatable with her speed and advanced weapons. She had plasma weapons that could destroy the shield of a planet. However, Alira's instincts were sharp enough to overpower Zintara, at least considering the fact that she depended on technology. Alira made use of the natural environment and traps in the arena to disable Zintara's plasma weapons. She missed every shot as her plasma weapons were destroyed. Later, coming from an angle no one expected, Alira attacked her, thereby winning the match. Alira's triumph marked a turn in the tide for the galaxy. Other species, relying so much on technology, could never fathom how a Deathworlder could win by pure skill and strategy. That day, Alira didn't just become a galactic champion, but a legend, dispelling all the prejudices about Deathworlders. But this was just the beginning. From now on, a new title was being given to humans in the galaxy, the most dangerous species. After Alira's victory, news spread like wildfire across the galaxy. In disbelieving shock, the leaders of the alien species heard the news. Each of Alira's opponents was at the forefront of technology, and they all were expected to easily defeat her. But this simple human had beaten them all with pure strength and strategy. Even the members of the Federation couldn't believe that a Deathworlder could pull off such a win. The fact was undeniable. Alira had stood among the best, without any technological aid. The day that followed the competition found every nook and corner in the galaxy filled with debates over Alira's performance. Her victory was viewed as a threat by many species. Humans were indeed very dangerous due to their physical strength, adaptability, and intelligence. The dependency on technology was now perceived as a weakness, and many alien civilizations had to redevelop their military armament. But every victory comes with a price. Alira was not only a champion, but also the new face of humanity. Alien species throughout the galaxy no longer saw human beings as some other life form. They now began to perceive them as a certain threat. This perception could turn humanity into a target and may change galactic politics forever. After the tournament, Alira went into her room to rest. The rhythm of the fights in the arena still echoed in her head. It was her body that felt exhausted, but her mind was alert. She replayed every move in her head, weighing everything in even to the tiniest detail. This victory was her personal achievement, but this victory put humanity in a position where they were one of the most notable species in the galaxy. Alira comprehended the results that would come out of this. A little later, she heard her door open, and in came Federation President Frither, followed by several high-ranking, influential alien leaders who had watched Alira's fights throughout the tournament. Frither's expression was unreadable. It wasn't clear whether he admired or disapproved of her. He just seemed deep in thought. "Alira," Frither said, his tone unusually serious, "you are doing a great job so far in this tournament. You have won one of the most fantastic victories in all annals of history for the Galactic Federation. You know this victory will not involve just you, but all humankind." Alira nodded slightly before speaking. "Yes, I understand that. But there have been long-standing misunderstandings about humans. We have not always been a peaceful species, but we have grown through the need to fight. If other species see us as a dangerous threat, it's because of their perceptions." Frither remained silent for a moment. Then he turned and nodded to those standing behind him. The lot of them filed out, leaving Frither to continue speaking with Alira in privacy. As they were leaving, Frither once more spoke in that low tone. "We knew little about the human species. Now, however, after observing you, we must realize that what little we knew of the so-called Deathworlders was entirely wrong. But again, this will be more of a disadvantage than a benefit to you. Now, many species in the galaxy will regard you and your kind as a threat. Your victory will have a diplomatic price tag." Alira knew exactly what Frither was trying to insinuate. The eyes of the galaxy were upon her now, not only for the brutal performance in this arena, but also because she was the token of mankind. As Frither walked out of the room, Alira took a deep breath. This was only the beginning. She was no longer an ordinary human, but had turned into a figure that symbolized strength and potential within. But it also signified that higher threats would arise, far from the ones at the arena, much more important than those in the arena. The next day, headlines like "Victory of a Deathworlder" and "Humanity among the Federation's Strongest" filled galactic media. In fact, the titles practically overflowed from every news outlet in the galaxy. However, this victory inspired a number of negative emotions. Curiosity and admiration, yes, but also suspicion and fear. They began to study the humans in depth, especially among the civilized warrior cultures. After all, defeating the most advanced champions of the galaxy with no technological help from anyone would indeed prove that a Deathworlder was capable of creating an overturning situation in the galactic balance of power. The doors burst open, and in came the different leaders of the Galactic Federation to continue discussing the aftermath of humanity's status after Alira's victory. Grothiu of the Catalar slammed his fist onto the table. This Deathworlder may have defeated the strongest champions in the galaxy, but that doesn't mean their kind can stand against civilizations like ours. They're still primitive and cannot exist in the galactic arena without technology. Another leader, General Zarlik of the Votrunian, responded far more cautiously than Grothier did. Perhaps this victory is evidence that they are much more multifaceted and powerful than we thought. Humans might not have advanced technology, but the natural powers make them something unusual for us. We have to be very careful with them. As the debate went on with the other council members, strategic implications of Alira's victory began to emerge. While humans were behind technologically, they were now recognized as strong physically and strategically. This turned out to be a dilemma for many civilizations, which provoked different kinds of approaches toward humanity. Some viewed it as a future ally, while others saw it as an emerging threat that needed to be controlled. Meanwhile, darker forces of the galaxy also watched this victory and how well the potential of humanity could serve as a tool for their own purposes. Operating outside of the bounds of the Federation in the most hidden, lawless areas of the galaxy, these forces looked upon Alira's victory as an opportunity. Meanwhile, Alira initiated diplomatic relations within the Galactic Federation. Humanity, trying to carve its niche in this vast galactic arena, became the overnight sensation with Alira's victory. Yet, this privileged position got as dangerous since friendships can be sought with the rest of the civilizations, but threats from darker sides of the galaxy must be met as well. One night, as Alira was sleeping in the middle of the Federation, the door quietly swung open for her. A black-cloaked figure slid inside, face covered. In a flash, Alira turned to the stranger, instantly alert. This was no normal Federation character. They represented some sort of organization, much more clandestine. Alira, the figure said, "Your victory is only the beginning, but now is when the real game starts." With his words, she did not know what he meant, but a feeling inside of her told her that something big was coming. Still uncertain, Alira felt tension building up in her body after the mysterious figure's words. The headquarters of the Federation were highly secured, and yet this man had made his way into her room. His face was still shrouded in darkness, though his voice came softly and wisely. "Who are you?" Alira asked firmly, her muscles taut as if to spring into action at any moment. Her mind began to strategize, but the figure did nothing to show it was hostile. They slowly raised their hands and drew the cloak off their head to show their face. Their skin was dark green, with sharp features and eyes that looked like they were bearing the depths of space. "My name is Vorther," the figure calmly returned with, yet full of authority. "I am a part of something called the Galactic Shadows Union. What you pulled off will be heard far beyond the Galactic Federation. Your victory may change the balance of power forever." Alira had never heard of any Galactic Shadows Union, but she had soon realized that that figure knew much more than he said and that he was dangerous. "What do you want?" Alira asked, keeping her gaze fixed on Vorther. "I have come to make you an offer," Vorther replied. "You are a Deathworlder, and your strength is greater than we imagined. Having someone like you on our side can allow us to make major changes in the galaxy. You saw the corruption inside the Federation. They will use you as a symbol, but we, the Shadows Union, can give you real power." Alira's brow furrowed. "True power," she repeated. "Mine is mine, anyway. I will not hear you. Whatever the problem with the Federation is, I will solve my own way." A faint smile crossed Vorther's face. "Do you think Federation hasn't realized your true potential? Right now, they see you as a threat. That is why they have isolated you here. But the real threat lies within their power structure. They want to weaken your victory and keep you under their control. Alira tried to piece together what Vorther was saying. Of course, the Galactic Federation was a huge body with all manner of influences pulling this way and that within it. But what was Vorther trying to achieve? Alira fell silent for a time. If what this man was telling her was true, then the Federation was already playing a game of cat and mouse with her. But Alira would never let that happen to herself at the hands of any force. Humans forge their own paths, Alira declared firmly. If there is a problem with the Federation, we'll sort it out ourselves. I am not going to be some pawn for anyone. A deep sadness entered Vorther's eyes. This decision will put you in danger, he whispered. Refusing to join us will make the Federation see you as a threat. They're afraid of your potential, Alira. They don't want to use it, they want to destroy you. Alira thought that all of this could be some kind of trap, but her gut now told her that at least something Vorther had said was correct. She still remembered how the Galactic Federation had reacted in that arena. Traces of shock and fear certainly did flash. Did that mean they wanted to eliminate her? She had to be very cautious. It wasn't clear what Vorther was after yet, and Alira could not take any man's word for it. No one's going to get in my way, Alira replied as her gaze locked with Vorther's deep eyes. Neither the Federation nor you. I will decide my own path. Vorther slightly nodded. Then, so it shall be, he said. Yet remember, you did change the balance of power in the galaxy. Those who perceive you as a threat will make you pay for that change. The Galactic Shadows Union shall be watching you. As he left the room, Alira's head was a barrage of questions. Who is the Shadows Union? What do they want? And why do they value her as much as they did? Little time was available to answer such questions, for things within the Federation were about to break loose themselves. The following morning, a formal representative of the Federation appeared at Alira's door. A tall, armored Verithian handed an official notification to her. The notification said that Alira was called to attend the Strategic Security Division of the Galactic Federation. It was to take place within the most classified building of the Federation. She had known what that summons had meant. The Federation was after any manner of wriggling out from underneath a growing threat they perceived to have risen since her victory. They wanted to rein her in, or even stop her. But Alira wasn't about to fall into their trap. She steeled herself and went to the headquarters at the time appointed. The Strategic Security Center of the Federation was a huge space station. Only the top leaders and strategic advisors of the Federation were allowed to work in this highly restricted space. Alira had entered the building and felt the thickness in the air the moment she stepped inside. There were armed guards lined up along the halls, with security tight. The moment Alira stepped into the meeting room, she met the very top of the Federation's leadership. Each galactic species was represented, and they coldly stared at her. The only thing that could be heard in the room was the heavy silence, which made the air tense enough to cut with a knife. It was now the turn of Federation President Frither to break the silence, which meant the opening of the meeting. Alira, he began in a deep voice, we feel this as a great honor to have you here with us after your victory in the Galactic Tournament, but there are some problems in the balance in the galaxy that we have to review. Alira grasped the intention. I know why you have called me here, she said forthrightly. You're afraid of my being human and my victory, but you needn't bother about that, because I am not a threat here. Frither listened attentively to her words. We do not hold a grudge for or against you personally, he said serenely. However, the Federation is responsible for galactic security. Your victory has raised questions in many civilizations once more. Even those who are technologically advanced regard you as a threat, and that is why we must be able to watch you more closely. Watch me, Alira repeated skeptically. Or control me. Frither stopped for a second, then breathed. This is just a precautionary measure, he said. We have to protect the interests of the Galactic Federation, but we don't see you as a danger. As Alira listened to the words that resounded within this room, she knew this was only just the beginning. She had to be careful not to become a pawn in these galactic games, but whatever stood in her way would have to meet her head-on. For Alira was a Deathworlder, and it was proven that Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. But this encounter would not be the first battle in the galactic arena of hers. Dark forces were already in motion, and powers from other corners of the galaxy now focused on her. Her victory was only just the beginning, and a greater war loomed over her. Since having met the top officials of the Federation, every step felt followed even by Alira herself. The Federation had gotten their point across. They did not trust her. As Alira walked down the long corridors of the station, her brain worked to understand what the meaning of the meeting was and the plans against her. She faced a fact that would be now considered a threat in the eyes of the Galactic Federation. But the question was when and how they were going to act. Once she reached the end of the corridor, she took a small transport vehicle. Her gaze scanned space. Everywhere was filled with Federation security measures. Alira was no longer just a galactic champion. She was a sensitive balance between the greatest forces in the galaxy. She could feel within her how heavy it was to be under threat at every turn. Yet, this was not something that would make her afraid or step back. It wasn't until the transport carried her beyond the Federation's security zone that Alira finally breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't destined to last. Before boarding the ship, the words of Vorther replayed in her brain. The Shadows Union. Who was it, and what was it? Could there really be somebody above the Federation's reach, or just another manipulation? Alira had questions, but answers were not well seen. When Alira came back to Earth, there was a strong loneliness in her heart. After winning the championship, humankind rose to prominence before the eyes of the galaxy. However, the price was too high to bear. The attitude of the Federation toward her was not close to friendly, and the most powerful figures of the galaxy had accepted her as a threat. That night, Alira looked at the Earth's atmosphere, which was blue. Her gaze settled upon the seas, mountains, and forests below. Being a Deathworlder was a curse in the eyes of many, for Earth's harsh conditions had molded humans into being strong, hardy, resilient, and at the same time, dangerous. Alira began to understand this truth more and more. Earth was a feared planet amongst its peers in the galaxy. It was here that one learned to walk the thin line between life and death. It was then that the whole thought struck Alira suddenly. All the warnings that had been given to her, the fact that at times she almost felt watched, the pressure of the Federation. All together, something needed to give way. She wasn't just a champion anymore. Alira had become a symbol of Earth and humanity's place in the galactic arena. But she knew this wasn't going to be a passive symbol. That night, Alira concluded that this fight would be not only for herself, but for all of humanity. She was going to take stand against those who tried to control her and made the deepest nightmares of the galaxy come true. Indeed, Deathworlders were dangerous, but their danger was to be used in the protection of freedom and power from humanity. By morning, Alira was ready for a new beginning. It wasn't her physical strength and strategic mind that guided her, but now it was the strong will that represented the best part of humanity. She no more wanted to stay on the defensive. She would carve her way, step into the darkest corners of the galaxy, and dismantle the games played by both the Federation and the Shadows Union. Before she left Earth, Alira looked one last time at the planet down below. Being a Deathworlder was her greatest strength. To the galaxy, humanity might be a menace, but it was a menace nobody could control. A legend was born that would ring across the stars. Alira was that figure who would push the limits of humanity and reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. With that deep breath, Alira started her new journey, beyond the stars, into the darkness, outplaying the traps set against her. She was, after all, a Deathworlder, and a Deathworlder would make it through.